speak about your interview experience at Purdue. And
Right.
so just to begin with, can you tell us what the medium of communication was and who interviewed you?
Right. So the medium of communication was Skype. It was a Skype video call. It was slated for 30 minutes. The lady, I don't remember her name right now. Heather Goodwin. Yeah. Heather Goodwin. She was the one who interviewed me over Skype. And she's Associate Director Admissions at Purdue University's Krannert School of Management.
Okay.
And
what were your
yeah.
overall impressions about your interview? Was it a stress interview or was it more
Um,
conversational?
yes. So it was not a stress interview. It was a pretty relaxed interview. Initially the interview was, pretty chilled out, and she wanted me to get out of my shell. Overall, it was a pretty standard affair with your cookie cutter questions like why MBA, why now, what are your future goals. Apart from that, one thing which I felt was a little different from the other interviews were that they were looking more towards my own personal experience, specifically from a leadership perspective. Since I had worked in a leadership role before, they had a lot of emphasis on leadership, what kind of leadership strategy, or what kind of as a leader, what kind of strategies do I follow so that my team is working effectively, and they were more interested in my own personal experiences. That is something which I thought was the focus was more.
Got it. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about the flow of the entire interview. How did it start and
Right.
which direction
Right.
did it go and what kind of questions were asked?
Correct. Correct. So I think once we had our formal introductions, Heather was nice enough to share with me the format, where she said that, we'll ask some questions regarding your profile. There will be a critical reasoning question, which was your typical market sizing question.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and apart from that, maybe she might touch upon some personal experiences which I have had. The start was pretty standard. She just told me that if you could just give me a 90-second overview of your profile. And she mentioned the 90-second word specifically. I think that is something which we had prepared before, and that really helped me to squeeze everything. Considering that I had to talk about three different organizations, starting from Cognizant, then to Infosys, then to my own family business, as well as, touch upon the learnings. We started with that. The way she kind of reacted was pretty positive, and I thought that I started on a strong footing. Um, After that, she told me, okay, if you could just explain me your short-term and long-term goals. So then again, I touched upon that, in a short term, I would like to work in a leadership position with a technology company. And maybe in the long run, I aspire to start my own digital consultancy firm. And this was again consistent with whatever we have written in the essay. And that is something that's kind of a tip from my end as well, that that story has to be consistent, because they have already read your essays. They are expecting that consistency to remain, and if you diverge from that, it will lead to maybe unnecessary questioning from their end. So that was question number two. After that, she touched about my leadership experiences. She wanted to know whether I have faced any, what I have learned from my leadership experiences, or she wanted me to explain about my leadership style as a leader. What kind of a style do I follow as a leader? Then she gave me a scenario-based question where, she asked me that, let's say if you are leading a team of 7 people, and you guys are deciding on a process or on a methodology, and 6 people are on one side, but there is one person who disagrees, and he's not that confident with that process or approach. So how will you deal with this situation? That was a question. So, in response, I told her that you have to look at it from two ways, right? I mean, just because 6 people agree on one thing and another person does not agree, does not mean that that person is wrong. So first, let me have a chat with him. Let me understand on what basis is he objecting to this. If he's coming up with a better solution, which maybe he has implemented before, or he has some very strong data points or POCs, to prove that this will work, then I'll give my due thought. But if he's not able to come up with this kind of an approach, then from an objective perspective, more from a data point perspective, I would explain him step by step that, see, this is the case, this is why we are going for this process, and we feel that as of now, considering the deadlines and constraints which we have, we feel that this is the best option. So that's how I kind of responded to that question. After that, she asked me that if your teammates have to describe you in 3 words or three main things, what would that be? Three qualities maybe. So I told her about my qualities: confidence, leadership, and articulate in communication. Then she told me that you have had substantial leadership experience, but what are some other things within the leadership which you think an MBA can help you develop, or you would like to learn during your MBA? So I told her that number one is that I need to learn to delegate better, and that is something which I have been told before as well as part of my professional appraisal discussions. And number two would be that sometimes when I'm working in a technical environment, I get too entrenched into the technical solution and maybe fail to see the big picture. So from a managerial perspective, it is necessary that I take a bird's eye view of the situation, because I have to look at the process end to end. So this is something which I had to improvise on the call. Frankly, I had not kind of prepared for this question, but I think somewhere we had this discussion, so it popped into my mind. After that, she asked a critical reasoning question where she told me that, let's say, take any city, and within that city, if you could tell me how would you calculate the number of streetlights in that particular city. So then again, I told her that I would first like to get the area, and after the area, I would need to see how many of that area are actually roads where streetlights are supposed to be there, because not every road will have streetlights. It's not that 100% coverage. Once I have that, I would maybe get another data point where I would like to see, okay, after every 500 meters or after every 200 meters, how many street lights are there within that particular stretch, and then get that number divided with whatever data point I have, and approximately I'll be able to guess the number of street lights which I have. After that, she asked me what other schools have I applied to, and then I told her that within US, apart from Purdue, I have applied to Schiller, and this is again because they have a strong focus on technology. India, it's Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and I have applied to 2 schools in Singapore, NUS and NTU, again because from an Asian perspective, Singapore is a technology hub, and considering that my future career goals are more towards the technology industry, so from a geographical perspective, Singapore would be a good option for me to pursue my MBA. And then she asked me that, let's say your funding is even taken care of, what would stop you from coming to Purdue University? So this was a question which I was not expecting at all, and for a second, for a second I thought that let me tell her that nothing will stop me. But then I remembered that these guys, they interview a lot of people, and specifically from India, and I personally feel, that was my own feeling, that they have a very strong, what do you say, bullshit detector. So it's better to be frank here than to simply sugarcoat her. So I told her that, can I be frank with you? And she was said that I'll be more than glad if you are frank with me. And I told her that considering the current political uncertainty and all the hallahu about visas, maybe that is something which comes into my mind. Considering that MBA is a major investment from anybody's standpoint, both from a time perspective and financial perspective. And if you're not able to get that required ROI, it does not make any sense to go in for such a rigorous program at this point of your career. So if there are uncertainties at that end which will stop me from achieving my goals, then I might have second thoughts. But apart from that, I don't see any reason not coming to Purdue, and I made sure that I put forward another point telling that how Purdue University is a great fit for me and how it can do wonders for my um, career. So that she gets that impression that I have done my research and I feel that it's a great fit for me. Finally, she said that if there are any questions from your end, and for that, because I had done some research and I asked her about the experimental learning consulting programs which they have. And she was very glad I asked that question, and she responded back that that's a great question. And then she went on explaining that how they partner with industry partners to work on real world consulting problems. And sometimes this is a great opportunity for students to even land up a job, because when they work with these companies on issues which they are facing, they might be able to distinguish themselves and finally land up a job. And I think that's how the interview ended. And then she told me that she will be forwarding her. I'm sorry. She will be forwarding her comments to the admissions committee, and usually it takes around 2 to 4 weeks to process an admissions decision. And I did my interview on 6th of February. Today is, I think, 23rd. And fortunately, I have got an admit from Purdue.
Perfect.
So that was
Congratulations
the
again.
whole
I think
experience.
that was a very elaborate explanation of how your interview went. Thank you so
Right.
much. And in terms of preparing for the interview, how
Yeah.
did you go about preparing for your interview, and what kind of research you did before you actually attend the
Um,
interview?
right. So I think once I got the interview invite from Purdue, I again got in touch with you, and I took that mock interview package where you have. So I think that also helped me a lot, because the two 1 hour sessions which we had
Mm-hmm.
within a week, there we had touched upon on these kind of questions, and because I was well prepared with my answers and with the strategy which I have to employ, I could leverage those experiences in my real world interview with Krannert. So that is something which helped me. Apart from that, another thing which I'll suggest is that you should read the program website a lot, because I think it gives a lot of valuable information which you can leverage. This point is something which I have come across in all the three interviews. They will try to ascertain whether you have done your research about the program or not, whether you are serious coming to their university or not, if they decide to admit you. So if you are not very well prepared with how Purdue stands in comparison to other, or for that matter any other MBA school in comparison to other schools, and how it fits with your own career goals, then maybe they can grill you and you can come across as a candidate who's not that serious, and he's just applying, taking that it's a safe school and he can get an admit. So that is something which I felt across all the three interviews I had.
I think
Yeah.
these are very valuable tips. At
Yeah.
this stage, we can conclude our discussion on Purdue and move
Correct.
on to speaking about NUS.